The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the distant cries of coyotes and the steady hum of the desert wind sweeping across the plains. The moon hung low, casting a pale silver glow over the broken wagon where a little girl crouched, clutching her knees to her chest. Her small voice quivered as she whispered into the shadows. "Daddy, is she dying?" Her wide, frightened eyes were fixed on the figure, slumped against a wooden post, her wrists bound in iron chains, her hair matted with dust and sweat, and her lips cracked from thirst. She had been dragged into town like livestock, a prisoner of men who saw her only as property. Her spirit nearly extinguished under the weight of her shackles. The girl's father, a tall, weathered man named Caleb Foster, stood silently, his jaw tight as he looked at the broken woman before him. He had seen death many times before on the battlefield, in the storms of hunger that swept the prairies, in the hard winters when even strong men didn't survive, but something in this woman's eyes told him she was still clinging to life, however fragile. He crouched beside his daughter, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and whispered back, "No, Emma. She ain't dying, not if we can help it." The girl blinked at him, uncertain, but her little hand reached for his, gripping tightly as if to anchor herself to his resolve. Caleb turned to the men who had brought the woman in chains. They were traitors, rough men with greed written across their faces, speaking of her as though she were nothing more than merchandise. One of them spat into the dirt and sneered, "She ain't worth much, Foster. Sick, weak, and near broken. But if you want her, you can pay half and take her off our hands. Else she'll rot where she is." Caleb's jaw clenched. He knew what these men did to people like her. He knew the cruelty, the torment, the hopelessness. And in that moment, something rose inside him, a fire that refused to let her story end in chains. Without hesitation, he reached into his worn coat, pulled out what little silver he had left, and tossed it into the traitor's greedy palm. "She's mine now," he said firmly, his voice carrying no room for argument. The men laughed, shrugged, and left, leaving their broken prize behind. Caleb knelt beside the woman, carefully breaking the rusted chains with his tools, the clink of iron echoing in the still night. Emma watched with wide eyes, her heart pounding as if she could feel the weight of the moment. The woman flinched when the chains fell away, as if freedom itself was something foreign and frightening. Her voice, hoarse and fragile, barely escaped her lips. "Why?" she asked, eyes filled with disbelief. Caleb met her gaze, steady and unwavering, and replied, "Because no one deserves to live in chains." He slipped his coat around her frail shoulders, shielding her from the cold desert night. Emma, innocent and tender-hearted, stepped forward with something clutched in her small hands. It was a simple cotton dress she had been saving for her rag doll, pale blue with tiny hand-stitched flowers. "Here," she whispered, offering it with trembling hands, her eyes bright with compassion. "You can wear this. You don't have to stay like that." The woman's eyes widened as she stared at the little dress. No one had given her anything without expecting something in return. Not food, not warmth, not even kindness. And now here was this child, offering her the one thing she had left of her own. Tears welled in the woman's eyes, sliding down her dirt-streaked cheeks, and she accepted the gift with trembling fingers. For the first time in years, she felt the faint stirrings of something long forgotten, hope. Caleb helped her to her feet, steadying her frail body as Emma clutched her hand. "What's your name?" Emma asked softly. The woman hesitated, her lips trembling as she shook her head. I don't have one anymore," she whispered, the weight of her past pressing heavily on her. Caleb knelt before her, his rough hand gently lifting her chin so their eyes met. "Then we'll give you one," he said firmly. "You ain't just a shadow. You ain't just chains. From this night on, you got a name, a place, and a second chance." He glanced at Emma, who was already beaming with the kind of love only a child could give. "What do you think, little one? What should we call her?" Emma's face lit up and she said without hesitation, "Grace, because she's like a gift, and gifts should never be thrown away." The woman gasped softly, her hands clutching her chest as if the very word pierced her heart. Grace, it rolled through her like a promise, a lifeline, a whisper from heaven itself. She fell to her knees, overwhelmed, her voice breaking as she whispered, "Grace, my name is Grace." And in that moment, something shifted in the air. She was no longer a slave, no longer a prisoner of men's cruelty. She was Grace, a woman reborn in the kindness of strangers, in the love of a child, and in the fierce resolve of a man who believed freedom belonged to everyone. Caleb lifted her gently, helping her into the small wagon that would take them home. Emma nestled against her side, clutching her tiny hand, whispering about all the things they would do together, planting flowers in spring, chasing fireflies in summer, baking bread in their warm little kitchen. Grace listened, tears streaming down her face, each word healing a piece of her broken soul. The road ahead would not be easy. The scars on her body and heart would not vanish overnight. But in that moment, with the chains left rusting in the dirt behind her, Grace felt something she had thought long dead. She felt alive. And as the wagon rolled into the horizon, beneath a sky painted with stars, Caleb glanced back at her and said, "You ain't alone anymore. You've got a family now, and together we'll build a life worth living." For the first time in years, Grace smiled. It was faint, fragile, but it was real. She had been given not just freedom, but dignity, love, and the chance to begin again. And all it took was a man's courage, a child's innocence, and the belief that even the most broken soul could be reborn if given a dress, a name, and a second life. And friends, if this story touched your heart, if you felt the weight of Grace's journey from chains to freedom, then don't just let it end here. Subscribe to this channel, because every story we share is more than words. It's a reminder that hope lives where kindness is shown, and that no matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes. Your support helps us bring more powerful, life-changing stories to light. So click that subscribe button, share this with someone who needs hope today, and join us in keeping these stories alive. The days that followed were slow and uncertain, like the tentative steps of a newborn fawn. Grace, though free from her chains, still carried them inside her heart. She woke in the night trembling, clutching the thin blanket Emma had given her. Her breath caught in her throat as memories of captivity clawed their way into her dreams. But every time, without fail, she would open her eyes and see the soft glow of the lantern Caleb left burning low by the hearth, a silent promise that she was no longer alone. Emma would often crawl out of her little bed and curl up beside Grace, wrapping her small arms around her like a shield against the darkness. And though Grace had been stripped of trust long ago, slowly, through the gentle rhythm of life on the ranch, she began to believe in the kindness of the family who had taken her in. Caleb never asked about her past. He never pried, never demanded an explanation. He treated her as though she had always been there, as though her presence was not a burden but a blessing. He taught her the simple routines of their life: how to grind the coffee beans in the morning, how to milk the cow, how to mend the fences when the wind blew too hard. And each task gave Grace something she hadn't felt in years, a sense of worth. Emma became her shadow, her laughter like sunlight breaking through the clouds. She would chatter endlessly, asking Grace questions about everything, from how flowers grew to why the stars twinkled. Grace didn't have all the answers, but Emma didn't care. To her, Grace was a friend, a sister, a mother figure wrapped into one. And little by little, Grace found herself laughing again, the sound foreign and fragile at first, then stronger, freer, as if she was remembering who she once had been before. Chains and cruelty stole her joy. One morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of rose and gold, Caleb stood on the porch, watching Grace hang laundry on the line. The simple blue dress Emma had given her fluttered in the breeze, though now Caleb had managed to buy her a few more garments from the general store. She looked different now, still thin, still scarred, but her back was straighter, her eyes brighter, her movements steadier. She was healing, though he knew the wounds ran deep. Emma came skipping toward him, her little face lit with excitement. "Daddy, look at Grace," she squealed. "She's smiling. Isn't she pretty when she smiles?" Caleb's heart softened. He nodded, ruffling Emma's hair. "She surely is," he said quietly, though deep inside he felt something more than admiration. He felt a stirring he hadn't allowed himself in years, not since Emma's mother passed away, leaving him with an infant and a hole in his heart that he thought would never close. But now, seeing Grace standing in the morning sun, he wondered if perhaps God had brought her to them for more than just rescue. That evening, as they sat around the fire, Emma leaned against Grace, half asleep as Grace brushed her hair with gentle fingers. Caleb sipped his coffee, studying the two of them, and finally spoke. "Grace," he said, his voice low but steady, "you ever thought about what comes next? About what you want from this new life?" Grace looked up, startled by the question. Her lips parted, but no words came at first. She had never been asked what she wanted. Her entire life had been dictated by others, by men who bought and sold her, by chains that robbed her of choice. Now, with freedom before her, the question felt almost too big to answer. I don't know, she admitted softly, her voice trembling. I only know that I don't want to go back. I don't want to be a shadow anymore. Caleb nodded, his eyes steady on hers. Then you won't, he said firmly. You've got a place here for as long as you want it. This home is yours too. Grace swallowed hard, tears welling in her eyes. No one had ever offered her a home without condition. She wanted to thank him, to pour out the gratitude swelling in her heart, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she simply whispered, "Thank you," her voice breaking. And Caleb understood that those two words carried more weight than 1,000. The following weeks brought challenges. The townsfolk, curious and often cruel, whispered behind their backs. Some muttered that Caleb was a fool to take in a woman like her, that she was damaged, dangerous even. Others speculated cruelly about what her purpose was in his house. Grace overheard them one day while walking with Emma to the store. The words struck her like daggers, reigniting the old shame that clung to her like a second skin. That night she wept quietly, believing she was a burden to the man who had saved her. But Caleb, hearing her sobs through the thin walls, came and sat beside her. He didn't speak at first, just offered his strong, steady presence. Finally he said, "Grace, listen to me. Their words don't define you. You're not what they say. You're not what was done to you. You're more. You're alive, you're here, and that makes you stronger than they'll ever understand. Don't let them chain you again with their eyes." Grace looked at him through her tears, and for the first time she felt truly seen, not as broken, not as ruined, but as a woman who could be whole again. Spring turned into summer and the ranch bloomed with life. Grace learned to ride a horse, though she trembled at first, clinging tightly as Caleb guided her reins. Emma cheered from the fence, clapping and shouting encouragement until Grace finally laughed through her fear and let the wind whip through her hair. She learned to bake bread with Emma at her side, both of them covered in flour as Caleb walked in and teased them about ruining the kitchen. Slowly, the house that had once felt empty now rang with laughter, warmth, and a sense of belonging none of them had expected. Grace was no longer just a rescued woman. She was family. One evening, after Emma had fallen asleep, Grace stepped outside to breathe in the cool night air. Caleb was there, leaning against the fence, his gaze lost in the stars. She stood beside him, the silence between them thick with unspoken words. Finally she whispered, "Why did you do it? Why did you save me that night when you could have walked away?" Caleb turned his head, his eyes meeting hers, steady and unwavering. "Because I saw more in you than chains. I saw someone worth saving. And maybe I needed saving too." Grace's breath caught, her heart pounding as the weight of his words sank in. For the first time, she realized this wasn't just about him rescuing her. It was about them rescuing each other. The journey wasn't over. Grace still had nightmares, still carried scars inside and out. But she was no longer defined by them. She had a name, a family, a home. She was Grace, reborn, cherished, alive. And as Caleb reached for her hand under the starlit sky, she knew that this second life she had been given was more than just survival. It was love, it was belonging, it was freedom in its truest form. And friends, if this chapter touched your heart, if you believe that no one is too broken to be given a second chance, then make sure you subscribe to this channel. Each story we share is a beacon of hope, a reminder that love and compassion can rewrite even the darkest past. Click that subscribe button, share this with someone who needs encouragement today, and join us as we continue to tell stories that prove redemption is always possible.